Hi everyone, it's Louise from Lulu Purple. I just want to start by saying Happy New Year to everyone, and I hope you all had a wonderful holiday time. So today I'm going to be using the stamp set that comes with Creative Stamping magazine, which is now on sale on my website. These stamps are designed by Sheena Douglas, and I'm going to do 4 cards and 1 art journal page. I'm using my Sticks to card bases. These are 6 inches by 6 inches. I am using my stamping card and I'm going to cut out a base using the Pierce squares. I'm now using a stick pin, which I'm just pushing through all the holes to make them a bit bigger on my cardstock. I'm now using my blending tools and my mini foam pads, just choosing the right colours for my project. I'm going to be using Wilted Violet Distress ink, Squeezed Lemonade, and Barn Door. So I'm using the mini blending tool to apply the ink onto my stamping card. So here I decide that my foam pad is a bit dirty, so I'm just changing it for a new one. So with the barn door, I'm just going up to the yellow, and then I will use a different foam pad to blend the yellow into the red. This will make quite a different colour. As you can see, it goes a little bit orange, so you need to blend it again or go over the top again with the yellow afterwards to make the yellow a bit brighter. I'm now using a Tim Holtz stencil called Bubble, and I'm just using my Wilted Violet through the stencil. So now I'm just doing some ghosting through the stencil. So I have a wet wipe wrapped up in a piece of kitchen towel, and the moisture from the wet wipe is just enough to ghost out the bubble stencil, so you get a lighter colour in the middle, which, as you can see, gets brighter when you dry it. So here I'm using 3 different sizes of circle die, which I'm cutting into a piece of acetate. So with my newly made circle stencil, I'm just using the wet wipe in the kitchen roll again to ghost out some larger circles. Next, I'm going to use my white gesso, and I'm just going to water this down a little bit. And I am now going to use a bit of cut and dry foam with my new stencil and just dab on the paint onto the cardstock. Now this takes quite a while, so what I do is just use the cut and dry foam to apply the paint onto the cardstock and keep drying each layer as you go, and just build up circle over circle until you're happy with what you've got. After that has all completely dried, I then use my VersaFine Onyx Black ink pad, and I'm just stamping the image a couple of times as it's a new stamp, just to see how it comes out. I then clean it with a wet wipe and ink it up again. For some reason I find that if you do this before you use it, the stamp gives you a better impression. I'm now going to use my Cosmic Shimmer, what's it called? Oh, brain dead. Emboss powder, and I've put that over the top of the stamped image, and as you can see here, I'm just heating it up with my heat tool. I carry on doing this with the other stamps, which I will just fast forward through because it will get a bit boring. So there goes the emboss powder, and I'm just brushing off some of the loose bits, and then I heat it up and carry on in this fashion. So because this is going to go into my window and I have used my distress inks, I'm going to use my distress glaze over the top of this project. This will help to stop the fading of the inks. It also makes it waterproof as well. So now I am using my Cosmic Shimmer acrylic glue and my double-sided tape to mat and layer onto a black piece of cardstock, and I'm just cutting this down to size. So that is my first card all finished. So moving on to the next project, I'm going to use my talcum powder over my card base, and I'm using my VersaFine ink on my drum set kit stamp, and I am using my Cosmic Shimmer emboss powder again to emboss the ink. So I'm going to be doing 3 cards at the same time, so I'm now just skipping to the next card where I'm using my talcum powder again over the card base, and I am stamping with my Perfect Medium ink, which is a sticky glue type ink which you can use to emboss with emboss powder. I'm using the clear emboss powder again, and I'm just going to randomly stamp this circle stamp with music notes all over the back of my card. Sorry about that, my brain seems to be extremely slow this morning. So as you can see, I'm just stamping the image and using the emboss powder and heating the emboss powder to make it set. So here you can see the emboss powder is clear, and I'm just going to put that to one side to dry out completely. So moving on to the next card, I'm just stamping these shoes, and a little saying above it. And I'm going to colour this in, but I will do this off screen so the video isn't way too long. Going back to the drum set, I'm now going to use my drawing gum to go over the top of the drum set. Now this is a masking fluid which is water based, so you can clean your brushes really easily afterwards, and it dries quite quickly. As you can see, it's water based, so there I'm cleaning my brush, and I'm going to leave this to dry before moving on to the next bit. So now I'm using my barn door distress paint, and I'm just blobbing one bit onto the page and using my water spray just to make the paint thinner so it wicks and spreads out over the page. I'm then going to use my heat tool to dry this off, and I'm moving on to my mustard seed, and I am doing the same process with this colour as well. I'm now going to use Mowed Lawn Distress Paint. And then Mermaid Lagoon. So now I'm using my fan brush, and I'm just using the same colour underneath that I'm doing my splashes with, just to add a bit more interest onto the page. I then leave this to dry. So moving on to my fourth card, I'm going to use Cracked Pistachio and Salty Ocean Distress Paint, and I'm just going to use these two colours to blend onto my piece of cardstock to make a blended background. Now first of all, I add way too much water, so my paint has gone extremely watery, so I'm just going to mop this up, dry it off a bit, and start again basically. So without putting too much water onto it this time, I'm just going to use the Salty Ocean and then the Cracked Pistachio over the top and blend the two colours together. Now this can take a bit of time, or you might not like it like I did and then go back over the top again once it's dried. Just keep doing it until you're happy, and just have a good time playing and messing around with your colours. So once I'm happy with that, I leave that one to dry, and I'm going to skip back to the embossed background, and I'm using my Squeeze Lemonade Distress Paint, which I'm going to water down slightly so that the embossed background resists the paint. I then use a wet wipe to take off the colour so that the clear embossed powder shows through. So going back to the drum kit, I am now going to remove the drawing gum with my finger, which will show the white drum kit underneath. So now I'm going to skip back to my blue and green background, and I'm using some of the stamps with my VersaFine ink, which I realise is a mistake because VersaFine ink doesn't dry very well on top of paint, so I changed to my archival black ink, which dries a lot better on a painted background. So here I'm just using the silhouetted people onto a white background for the blue and green card I've just done, and then I'm going to skip on to my art journal page. So I'm using my Victorian Velvet Distress ink, and I'm using my brayer to apply the colour to the page. I'm just drying off that paint layer, and I am now going to use my Picked Raspberry Distress ink and do exactly the same thing with the brayer over the top of the first layer. So when the page is completely dry, I then use my archival ink, and I'm using the little dancing people to make a border around the outside edge of my page. So here I'm just using one of my Unipin pens just to fill in some of the gaps that are missing on the people so they look like a better silhouette. I then use the music keyboard to do a bit more stamping around the edge, and I'm just using a piece of paper on the edge so that the stamp doesn't merge into the people. I'm now using my archival ink Tiger Lily, and I'm using the round music stamp just to add a bit more interest to the background. I'm using my VersaFine ink pad again to stamp my words onto a white piece of cardstock so it shows up a bit better, and I'm using some of the other stamps just to add a bit more interest to my background page. So at this point I realise the page isn't looking quite how I want it to, so I make some masks to go over the two stamped images on that page, and I'm just using the people silhouette in the background to cover the whole of the page. And I then stamp out the two stamps again on some white cardstock to make them stand out from the background. I'm now using my Cosmic Shimmer acrylic glue again to stick the cardstock onto my art journal page. I'm now using my bright pink Derwent Coloursoft pencil just to colour in the flowers on my stamped images. So that is my art journal page all finished. Wasn't quite what I expected in the first place, but it doesn't matter if you change your mind, things can still work out okay. So going back to my blue and green background, I'm just using my Cosmic Shimmer acrylic glue to stick the dancing people onto the card. I then use my Sticks to foam pads to stick the words and the image of the dancing feet onto my yellow card background. I then use my little flowers that I have stamped and coloured in and just stick these randomly over my card. I then use my Wink of Stella glitter brush just to add a bit of sparkle to my flowers. And that is all of my 4 cards completed and my art journal page. If you would like to buy any of the products I have used in this video, they will be listed on my website blog post. I will leave a link in the description box below this video. I hope you have enjoyed watching this video. If you have, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Links to my website, Facebook and more will be in the description box below. Thanks again for watching and I hope you got inspired.